Hello and welcome to the 17 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1 Baseball College World Series preview and pick show. Gentlemen, this is the final podcast of the 2023 season. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. As always, the postseason at D1 Baseball brought to us by our good friends at Wilson. Today's the last day, the Omaha experience over in the Baseball Village. You've got limited edition products from Evo Shield, DeMarini, Louisville Slugger, and Wilson. You can shop for bats and gloves and gear, again, over there at the Wilson Omaha experience in the Baseball Village. If you're not in Omaha any longer, and I am in that boat, you can go online, evoshield.com/Omaha, and pick up those items. So again, just love partnering with Wilson in the postseason like we've done in the past. It's been a blast. And once again, this year it was great. Gentlemen, Kendall J. Rogers, Joseph J. Healy, Zebby Barrels, Fitty Barrels, Mr. Barrels, Aaron J. Fitt. This is it, boys. The last pod of the year. So I had two topics I figured we could cover. I wanted to get an update on Joe's workout top 5, even though it is totally erroneous and lacks credibility. And then also I figured we could just recap the fabulous Roondogs season. How's that agenda seem? That work for you guys?
Perfect.
Sounds amazing.
Joe, do you want to update us on your fraudulent top 5 rankings?
Sure. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Runes. Yeah. So the other day while you were out, Runes, I guess that was yesterday, I updated folks on we had a Todd Blackledge sighting in the hotel gym. After much deliberation, we've decided to go no play on that.
Really?
Todd Blackledge is on the outside looking in. He's a legitimate celebrity, but the tiebreaker kind of was, this is a baseball event and he's a football guy. Now if Brian Kelly showed up at the hotel gym, obviously he's got a level of fame that would put him over the top and put him on the list. But with Todd Blackledge, just didn't quite make the cut. So we're sticking with our current top 5. So one more day, celebrities out there in Omaha, if you're hearing this, today's kind of a tough day schedule wise. I might not actually get to the gym, so I can't guarantee anything. But if you want to try to crack the list, get down to the hotel gym today.
Thought to work out, take a selfie, and then tweet it at you or something, Joe.
Well, I saw Todd in the elevator. I thought about telling him, "Hey, just want to let you know I'm ranked higher than you on the celebrity gym list."
He's desperate, guys. He's been going to the gym every day, hitting the elliptical 3 hours, just hoping Coach Healy sees him. It's sad, really.
He was dehydrated yesterday because he's working so hard to try to be seen.
We got to keep Joe out of the workout room because heaven forbid Joe Burrow walks in there and then Monaco is just totally toast.
Yeah.
Kendall, how did that interaction go? I didn't get to hear a live recounting of you getting bounced out of an elevator for the Bengals quarterback.
It wasn't really an interaction. It was I was standing in the back of the elevator and the cop walked in and said, "I'm going to have to get out of the elevator."
Oh, you got extricated. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No respect.
And I'm like, wait, I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, you got to get out. It's special visitor or something." And while I get out, I'm thinking it's probably like the governor or something. No, it's a freaking football player. So he walked by. He had a whole posse. I tried to act like I was actually really mad about it.
Fitzy, Joe Burrow's no Blaine Gabbert. I mean, that's just not a man of the people like Big.
Well,
Blaine.
my buddy Dustin McComas texted me and said he's a proud Steelers fan. He said I should have yelled at him that he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, so he doesn't get an elevator by himself.
Love that. The NFL brings out the best in all of us. Joe, I don't know who your NFL team is. Are you abstaining now that the Oilers don't exist anymore, or what do you got?
My NFL team is the Houston Oilers. Still just waiting around for their next game.
Houston Oilers #1.
Yeah, Houston Oilers. But yeah, I just I didn't follow them to Tennessee because I was mad about it. And then when the Texans came along, by the time the Texans came along, I was kind of at a point where I wasn't. They never connected with me, I guess, when they came back, when the Texans came into the league. So I just really, I'm a neutral NFL observer.
Yeah. Well, we'll get you on that.
Has fun.
We'll get you part of the Carrots fan base this fall, Joe.
Sure,
absolutely. Now Aaron's a Raiders fan since Brady has stock in the Raiders.
No, stop. That's a bridge too far. That's a bridge too far.
Oh, very good. Well, gentlemen, let's do this thing. So I watched it on TV. J-Ro and I have watched the 2 games. That's been really fun. But Fitzy, why don't I start with you? Give me a recap of game 2 or some perspectives.
Game 2, that was a real gem, Runes.
Oh boy,
it was a real dandy. 24-4. It's a lot of
points.
A lot of points, as Coach Rooney would say. I mean, Florida's offense obviously came alive, and they poured it on against kind of the bottom part of LSU's bullpen, which makes sense because LSU is saving its top arms for today rather. But still, I mean, I think it's encouraging for Florida to get Wyatt Langford really rolling, to get Jack Caglione rolling with a couple of home runs. I mean, it was kind of one of those everybody hits days. But I mean, going back to the early part of the game, I mean, it's kind of wild. It felt like LSU had a chance to pull away, and in the first 3 innings, like serious threats, 3 innings in a row. And then the big moment of the game, was, when it was still hanging in the balance and LSU looked like they were the team that was in control. And Hurston Waldrop got pulled for Blake Purnell with the bases loaded, and Purnell got a 6-4-3 double play to end the inning. And from there, it was kind of all Gators.
Joe, what say you?
Yeah, I think a Twitter follower of mine described it as a come from behind blowout, which I think is precisely it, because I remember looking at Kendall and Aaron after whatever it was, the second inning or the third inning, and LSU's up 3-1. And I said, it feels like it should be 7-1 at this point. Because once again, LSU had runners all over the bases. Hurston Waldrop didn't have anything resembling command. Like, it just felt like he had really no idea where things were going, clearly just fighting it. And, but he minimized, and that ended up kind of being, now, again, who knows, who knows how the game plays out if, it is 7-1. Like, we can't assume Florida's going to score those runs, but it just felt like not landing the knockout blow early ended up being big, because Florida then comes back and ties at 3-3 and gets a little more confidence. And, then Ty Evans, the big grand slam. And now, I don't know if somebody asked in the postgame of Jay Johnson yesterday, and I thought it was a fair question. Like, I knew that Jay Johnson wasn't going to answer it in a way that was satisfactory to the person who asked it, but I thought it was a fair question to ask. Like, is it easier to take a loss like this in some ways? Because LSU had known the way that game was going in their heart of hearts, no matter what they actually said. In their heart of hearts, they had known that game was going that way at that point for a couple hours, right? So you've had some time to kind of emotionally come down from that, whereas a heartbreaker maybe lingers with you a little bit. So, we'll have to see. But I do wonder if maybe that makes it a little bit easier to use the cliche, flush this game.
Yep. Well said. Kendall.
I kind of go back to a play early in the game, and it kind of gets lost a little bit in the fact that this is such a rout. But, Florida, LSU knocks out Hurston Waldrop. They have a 3-1 lead. You're thinking, like, okay, like, this just looks like this has LSU written all over it. And, Florida has to go to Blake Purnell. At that point, you're thinking, like, oh, boy, this isn't good. You probably, don't have Brandon Neely. You're bringing in Blake Purnell in that situation against Tommy White. They get that double play off Tommy White. And that singular play kind of changed the complexion of the whole game. I think from that point on, I think Florida was like, okay, so, like, maybe things are kind of swinging in our favor a little bit. And they get the home run from Ty. And I think at that point, it was just like a roller coaster. You get that big defensive play. You get the big grand slam. All of a sudden, Florida's, like, just whole attitude in their dugout just did a total 180. So I kind of look back at that Tommy White double play as kind of the turning point of that game.
Yeah. And I would say, like, these two, head coaches, and, to be a head coach in college baseball, you're the CEO of the program, but you also are running the game. I'm going to give Sully, I think Jay Johnson is operating at a, just like different universe level as far as, like, if I was an LSU fan, I would be so pleased right now. Like, I would offer to cut Jay Johnson's lawn, wash it. Like, I would want Jay Johnson and his wife so happy. Like, he is so locked in on LSU they're going to check every box to be the program in college baseball. Now, others will compete too. It's a long way of getting to this point. Like, for Sully, that takes real courage to put Blake Purnell in that game yesterday. Like, he's thrown once in 7 weeks, and then Nick Ficarota has barely pitched and, had an inflated ERA, and he ends up being, just brilliant in that game. So, man, I was thinking about that during the game. I was thinking, man, would I have the courage to make that move? I guess you could argue there were no other moves, I suppose. But, Tommy White has been in fuego in this thing, and big knock after big knock. It felt like you're bringing in Purnell to end the game in LSU's favor in some ways. And that kid steps up and gets that ground ball, to your point, Kendall. So, yeah, anyway, just it's so fitting that this is going to game 3. I mean, that's been the nature of this College World Series and the nature of this season. Let's fast forward to today. So, Kendall, you had a great tweet about like what pitching is available. So let me read this, but I'd encourage anyone to check out Kendall's tweet because I'm totally bootlegging this. So for LSU, we assume here are the 4 arms: Paul Skeens, Thatcher Hurd, Riley Cooper if he's feeling well, and then Griffin Herring. Riley Cooper didn't even come to the park yesterday because he was sick. So Skeens, Hurd, Cooper, Herring. Florida, Jack Caglione, Cade Fisher, Brandon Neely. Is it Ryan Slater? Am I doing that right?
Yes.
Yeah, Ryan Slater.
Every time I say Ryan Slater, then I'm going Saved by the Bell.
It's actually AC.
Yeah, that's what I want to call him. Oh, so good. So again, it's Cags, Fisher, Neely, Slater. Here's the most important update. Do you guys know what the weather's doing yet today?
It's supposed to be blowing out again.
Yeah, it's supposed to be blowing out again, not quite as hard. But I will say this: when we were sitting on the porch of the Hilton last night, like the wind was actually more pronounced at like 6 o'clock than it was at 2 o'clock yesterday. So I kind of wonder if it actually will pick up early in the evening.
Could you guys feel so when I was still in Omaha, we knew the wind was blowing in, but I didn't like when I was walking to the yard, when I was walking to the stadium, I didn't like feel it didn't feel that windy, but you just knew if you looked at the flagpoles. When you guys were walking to the yard yesterday, could you like feel the wind? Was it that pronounced?
Yeah, real factor. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, like Kendall talked about the bag flying around yesterday, and like it was, sitting on the porch, you're worried about things getting blown over. I mean, it was very, very pronounced yesterday.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's a real thing. So we think it'll play offensive again today, but maybe not quite as much as yesterday.
Were you referring to a specific incident, Aaron? Things blowing over?
I can't comment on that.
Got it. It was the walk to the park because, walking to the park every day, it's been warm, but yesterday was a relatively pleasant walk because there was wind. And I made a mental note of like, this is the first time I've noticed any sort of breeze as I walked to the park. Like that was new to, and that's also to your point, Runes, where we talked so much about the wind in the first however many days of this tournament. And I had never noticed it whatsoever, except looking at flags.
But yet you'd look up at the flags and they'd be howling because it's just like up there, above the buildings, howling in from the river. It's just kind of totally different thing. It's just always a factor. It feels like even when, very, very seldom the wind's just doing nothing. The flags rather just doing nothing.
Yep. Man, it's such a conundrum as far as the way this park could play. So, all right, boys, let's do some picks here. What Kendall, why don't you go first? Who you like in here?
Oh boy. I'm torn on this one. I guess I'll stick with LSU, and here's what I'll say. I think if you're LSU, I think if Paul Skeens is going to pitch, I think you have to start him.
Agreed.
I don't think it makes a lot of sense to throw him a lot of pitches in the whole postseason and then totally change how you ramp him up. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. So I think if you're going to see Paul Skeens, he will start. And my concern would be is if Paul Skeens is dealing through 4 innings, which probably a pretty good bet that he will be, and he's at 60 pitches or something, do they still continue on with him? I mean, it's a legitimate question. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I just feel like if he's pitching well, they'll probably throw him 80 or 85 pitches, and then they're able to turn things over to the bullpen. And so I'm picking LSU. But if they don't start Skeens, I might change my tune a little bit because I do think Florida can get to Thatcher Hurd. But I'm taking LSU because I think that's what they're going to do with Skeens, personally.
Yeah, I would think they would start him too. Joe, what say you?
Look, I picked Florida to win the national title before the tournament, so I'm just going to stick with that. Might as well at this point because I'm with Kendall. It feels very toss-up-y, especially when you consider, as you read off, Runes, that yesterday what it largely ended up doing because of the blowout nature of the game is it created a situation where both teams were able to save whatever they have left, right? So both teams are kind of set up as well as they could have been given what they had coming into the series, right? So feels like a real toss-up game, but I picked Florida before going into this thing, so I'm going to stick with that.
Fitzy?
Yeah, I agree. Toss-up game. I'm gonna stick with LSU. I just think I agree with Kendall. I mean, I know that there was some talk maybe they could start Thatcher Hurd and try to finish the game with Skeens. I guess they could, but I mean, I don't know why you would flip those two again. If Skeens is going to pitch, let's keep him in the routine that he's used to, and Hurd's kind of used to come out of the bullpen right now. So, 3 days rest after throwing 120 pitches. He's had a heavy workload in the postseason. It's been documented. I'm sure people are going to freak out on Twitter. I'm going to probably stay out of that debate because I think it's tricky. But the kid wants to pitch. It's just one game for national championship. He's on 3 days rest. It's hardly unprecedented. I mean, Kevin Abel pitched on, 2 days rest in the last game and went the distance. I hope that doesn't happen here. We don't need to see him go the distance. That guy's got a chance to be the number 1 overall pick, but I would be surprised if he doesn't start, and he'll probably give you 4 or 5, and we'll see. But I like his chances to set the tone well here early, and LSU to get a few big swings with the wind blowing out. And I mean, if they keep putting runners on base, eventually they're going to get that one extra hit to get them home. I mean, they've had lots of base runners, so that's not. I feel much more concerned about them if they didn't leave anybody on base, but they just didn't have many base runners. I mean, the fact that you're leaving a bunch of guys on base means your offense is doing some things right. It's just a matter of getting that one extra hit. So for me, there's no concern about LSU can't get the big hit. I mean, that's bunk. I mean, they'll be fine, but it comes down to one game. That's it. So I'm taking LSU.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, boy, that is. I mean, the only reason not to start Skeens is that you hope that you don't have to pitch him at all.
Right.
And that just, I don't see Jay operating that way. Like, I think he's gonna just do it. And yeah, I think you're right, Fitzy. That argument, I'm gonna stay out of it too. We all have opinions there, and you just hope for the best. The reason I'm picking LSU is because I think the home plate umpire really matters in this game. Like Jack Caglione, it's well documented that, when he's in the strike zone, he's dominant, but it's not command at all right now. And it's barely control at times. And in fairness to Jack Caglione, he's only a year and change off of Tommy John surgery. So, that's going to be a work in progress. So I'm concerned about Jack Caglione's ability to throw strikes. I actually like LSU's pitching setup a little bit better. I would say, LSU's hitters are going to get a second look at Cade Fisher, and that's going to be interesting. Is there a Cam Fisher, by the way? Cam Fisher is the kid at Charlotte.
Charlotte, yep.
That's the other name. Gosh, we've had a lot of name doppelgangers this year in college baseball. But anyway, I digress.
Bruins, can I pull out another player here to talk about?
Please.
Another player for me to keep an eye on tonight is Jordan Thompson for LSU.
Yeah.
He's played some really iffy defense the last couple of games. He doesn't look right. He's 1 for 26 in this College World Series at the plate. He's the guy for me that I kind of circle. Like, he is going to need to have a big game, particularly defensively. They cannot give Florida extra chances and expect to win tonight's game. So keep an eye on Jordan Thompson. He needs to have a big game, and I hope he actually plays really well. He's always seemed like a great kid. He's a hard-nosed guy. He's gone through a lot of kind of trials and tribulations there at LSU. So I hope he actually plays pretty well tonight.
Yeah, I would say both shortstops are key players in this. I tweeted this, Kendall, on Jordan Thompson. Like, I've been fairly critical of him over the last 3 years. Like, man, like I've been kind of surprised that LSU just keeps running him out there. And the one thing that I think Jordan Thompson deserves a lot of credit on is he never retreats. Like, his body language never says I'm beaten, or like, he just keeps coming at you. Like, that's been impressive to me. I'll tell you that one of the reasons I'm picking LSU, guys, is because I'm concerned about Josh Rivera. Josh Rivera had 2 hits yesterday, but they were very much not when the game was in question, in my opinion. He did have that one ground ball hit. He went, maybe I'm being too hard on Josh Rivera, because I felt like in most of the postseason and a lot of this year, he was literally the best player on the field for Florida. He looked lost the first game and a half in these finals, like just
against basic fastballs.
Yeah, like just weird, like look like somebody kidnapped him or something. So he's a really critical player, because when he's right, he can really be a factor in a game. Like, I would say borderline take over a game, because he's such a great defender too. But Florida's going to need the Josh Rivera we've seen over the last 3 weeks, in my opinion, not the guy that has kind of been really searching the last 2 days. Go ahead, Fitzy. I cut you off.
No, you didn't. I was trying to cut you off, and I failed to. Yeah, here's what I think. Also, Cags, on the mound, like,
yeah,
I like where their bullpen is set up behind him. So if he doesn't go deep, they'll be okay. They can mix and match, but I mean, how long of a leash do you give him? Because the first 2 games of the series, Sproat and Waldrop have both kind of had a ton of traffic on the bases, have not gone very deep in the game. Sully's kind of ridden them out as long as he could and played with fire and not gotten really that burned. But Cag's also not like an elite strike thrower. And that's kind of the one key in this ballpark. If they get off to a start like that for the 3rd straight day, like one of these days they're going to get burned. I mean, you got to be ready to make the move there. And I mean, and maybe he comes through and throws a gem, but like, it's not kind of who he is. It's usually a lot of walks and HBPs, and he pitches out of trouble. And so, that to me feels like a big key here. What kind of start can he get them off to? Because if LSU's starting Skeens, chances are LSU is going to get off to a pretty good start on the pitching side. So, I mean, there's a chance for LSU to set the tone early against Cags. And I just wanted to correct something I said a moment ago. I think I said Abel was on 2 days rest in 2018. It's actually 4 days rest. He went the distance and threw that 2-hit shutout against Arkansas.
Got it. Like it. So in summary, Joe, you'll be purchasing your own Jell-O shots at Rocco's today, whereas Fitzy and Kendall, those will be on the house. So God bless you, Coach Healy. I appreciate your courage in that area.
That's right. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Gentlemen, these shows have been a blast, all College World Series long. Really appreciate all the listeners. Want to encourage you, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of the shows will be on there. That is very helpful and much appreciated. And that is it. Everyone enjoy the games. We will, of course, get into our normal podcast schedule after the World Series once we have put the 2023 season to bed. So enjoy the game, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.